No, they're wrong. They're wrong. The facts are on our side. The law is on our side. All they can do is pound on the table.
Hey everyone, James with TFBTV. I've got the pleasure of hosting Lawrence Demonico here at Bridle Iron South. We're in Texas. Lawrence decided to come down, give a TFBTV interview. You guys have been hearing a lot about Lawrence's company, Rare Breed Triggers. And Lawrence, you're the president of the company, correct?
That's right.
What is Rare Breed Triggers?
We brought the first forced reset trigger to the market.
Mm-hmm. That's your claim to fame.
That is our claim to fame.
And I think a lot of viewers out there have heard of the forced reset, or some people amicably call it the FRT-15, right?
You know what's funny is I heard that for the very first time like 2 days ago. And I hadn't heard, I mean, we've been around for almost a year. I refuse to believe that. Yeah, we've heard it, we've had it out for about almost a year now, but it was the first time I've heard it. And I was like, all right, I get it. All right, cool.
In my mind, I'm seeing you guys drawing this up on the whiteboard and somebody saying, hold on a second, you know what that looks like? And that never happened, huh?
You know, I would like to think when we did all the branding and we did all the work, we came up with like 1,000 names. And, you know, I don't even want to throw all of them out on the table, but no, I don't think anybody actually said FRT-15. Like, we probably would have thought of a better name had somebody thrown that out there.
That's
sure.
Hilarious. And I'm sorry, you know, it seems unprofessional, but I had to ask. I mean, you know, it's been driving me wild.
We're just like big kids. We're always going to find a reason to, you know, draw that shape on the whiteboard or, you know, throw out a fart joke. So
for sure. So before we get to the FRT-15,
sure.
Let's talk a little about you. What do you do? How did you get involved with Rare Breed?
Wow. Okay. So I also run a company, Rare Breed Firearms. Mm-hmm. Our firearms are very unique. They're not the standard, you know, AR. They're ornamental. So each lower receiver, you know, looks like something. We put out one that looks like a Crusader helmet, one like a Spartan helmet, one like a Samurai helmet. So that's kind of, you know, where we come from. When we brought that company to market, you know, everybody makes ARs. I mean, there's so many ARs out there. And with my background, a lot of people were like, why didn't you bring, you know, this run and gun, this like go to war gun to market? And I was like, well, we wanted to do something different that nobody was really doing. So that's why we did that. And then along the way, we kind of happened across this technology and nobody really had the balls to bring it to market. Can I say that? We all right?
Oh, come on. This is TFBTV. Cool. This is junk.
Great. So nobody had the balls to do it. And I was like, well, you found the right guy. It's easy to bring something to market like that. But when the shit hits the fan, like how many people are going to turn tail and run or, you know, hide? And well, that wasn't me.
And we're going to get to that.
Sure.
Before we do, for anyone who might not know, which is going to be very few people watching this interview, what is the forced reset trigger?
Before I explain how our trigger works, I'll talk about a standard mil-spec trigger.
Okay, great.
Most people should probably already understand this, but fire a round, the carrier starts moving backwards. It is going to cock the hammer. Now, at that point, it's up to the shooter. They can hold the trigger to the rear or release the trigger, allow it to reset, and pull the trigger and fire again. The forced reset trigger does not work like that. It's very, very similar, but when you fire the round, the carrier comes back and forces the hammer down. Mm-hmm. The hammer will force the trigger to reset, therefore pushing the shooter's finger forward. Now, when that happens, as it pushes the shooter's finger forward, a locking bar will pivot into place above the trigger and lock it, mechanically lock it, so the shooter cannot pull the trigger again until the carrier comes all the way forward and locks into battery. When it locks into battery, it's going to trip the locking bar, moving it out of place, allowing the shooter to pull the trigger again. Now, why is this significant? Because it allows the shooter to pull the trigger as fast as the gun will cycle. So you can shoot extremely fast.
So when we were talking about a mil-spec trigger, right?
Sure.
You pull the trigger and then we all know, most of us out there know what an AR-15 trigger reset feels like, and you get a clunk. You let that trigger forward. If you hold your finger to the rear, it doesn't fire again. It's a semi-automatic. You let it go forward, click, reset, then you depress it, and it fires again.
Right.
Semi-automatic. What does the force reset trigger do if, let's say, I hold my finger all the way to the rear?
I'm going to take a step back before I answer this question. When Congress defined what a machine gun was, they painted a box and said, all right, if you stay within this box, it's a semi-automatic. If you get outside of this box, it's a machine gun. So we were able to achieve our goal of firing very quickly and stay in that box, but it came at a cost. And this might be the first time I've ever actually explained this on camera. The cost is the hammer is always applying pressure up to the bottom of the carrier. So that's a lot of additional friction. There's nothing we can do about that. Like there's friction. Now there's ways to overcome that friction. How do we do that? Well, a lot of gas will help the carrier come to the rear. And then a heavy weighted buffer like an H3 typically is kind of what I go to, but based on how much gas you have, you can adjust the weight of the buffer as well. So that weight of that buffer will overcome the friction to get the carrier back into battery. But having that additional friction of the hammer pushing up against the bottom of the carrier it's a limitation that you have to overcome, and that is the cost to achieve that high rate of fire. Now, if you just pull the trigger and hold it to the rear, you are applying pressure to the trigger, which is applying pressure to the hammer. And as it is pushing up against the bottom of the carrier, you will induce a malfunction and the trigger just won't run. The gun is just going to stop.
Then that raises the question, why would I want a forced reset trigger?
Well, you definitely don't want to run it that way. Now, the trigger takes 5 pounds to break-ish. Now, if you pull, say 15, 20 pounds, well, you're going to induce a malfunction. But if you pull hard enough to break the trigger, but not so hard to induce a malfunction, now you're going to pull, it's going to fire. As the carrier comes back, forces the hammer down, it's going to force your finger forward into the reset. It's going to lock the trigger. As soon as the carrier comes forward again and it unlocks, it trips the locking bar and unlocks the trigger, allowing you to pull again, you can just continue to pull as fast as the gun will cycle in turn, basically magnum.
How is the force reset trigger different than a fully automatic? Because this
It
is
doesn't
your
get any
opportunity.
easier than this. So this is super simple. It only fires 1 round per rearward function of the trigger. When you pull the trigger to the rear, it fires 1 round. When it forces your finger forward, it is mechanically locked and cannot fire another round until the bolt is back in battery and it unlocks that trigger and allows you to pull it again. 1 round per rearward function of the trigger. Simple. Now, a machine gun, you pull the trigger and just hold it to the rear. And the sear, the auto sear, just releases the hammer and the hammer just continues to go. But that trigger never moves. You're just holding it to the rear. It never moves forward to reset. You're just holding it to the rear and it will run until you let go of the trigger. Night and day different. But before we brought it to market, we sought out 4 legal expert opinions. One of the experts, a retired ATF special agent who's also a practicing attorney. One of them, retired special agent from the ATF who was the chief of the ATF's technical branch, which happens to be the branch that makes legal determinations like this. Another retired special agent from the ATF who actually wrote the textbooks for the ATF Academy on classification of items like this. And another retired special agent of the ATF who worked at the Academy teaching classification of items like this. All 4 of these retired ATF agents who in fact have actually testified on behalf of the ATF in countless cases, all independently said this is a perfectly legal semi-automatic trigger.
Sometimes, especially when you've got plaintiffs, you've got defendants, you pay an expert, the expert will kind of tend to agree with you, if you know what I'm saying. But what you've said...
I'm actually really glad you asked that question. So some people have insinuated that we cherry-picked our experts. And I constantly tell people, like, these aren't our experts. These are the experts. They have testified on behalf of the ATF in, countless cases. So for the ATF, and it's very interesting because we're currently in litigation, and the United States Attorney has has referred to them as purported experts in his, in his motions and his responses to the court. And I'm kind of like, really? Are you really going to attack these experts? Like, are you really going to say they're not qualified? Can you imagine the United States arguing that our experts aren't qualified? That would lead to hundreds of cases being overturned. And honestly, they would still testify on behalf of the ATF if they're called in for a case. So no, we didn't cherry pick experts. As the law is written, it is a semi-automatic trigger. And this will kind of lead us into the trouble that we're having. But as the law is written, it meets the definition of a semi-automatic trigger. Now, certain agencies don't like it. And they don't like it because
I wonder
it fires
which
fast.
agency.
I mean, it's pretty simple. Now, if we're being honest, is it fast? Yes, it's very fast. Are binaries fast? They can be very fast. Is Jerry Mitchell fast? He's super fast, but is he classified as a machine gun? No, he's not. So we definitely have had trouble. The ATF, we're currently in litigation with the ATF, but they have classified it as a machine gun, and I've told them to go fly a kite.
What does the ATF say? What's their opinion? What are they saying? This is a machine gun. Why are they saying that?
They put together an administrative record. And in this administrative record, they've got items as irrelevant as social media chatter, people shooting in YouTube videos. Like, you have no idea what gun they're shooting, much less what trigger they're shooting. People making wild claims and statements that, like, it's all hearsay. So stuff as crazy as that. The administrative record was assembled in bad faith. And I will just say that. They have taken things intentionally out of context, misquoted our experts. We have a video on our homepage that explains the cycle of operation of this trigger. They chose to take a screenshot of the video and include that in their administrative record, but they conveniently left the video out, and then they took our cycle of operation and switched it up. So they're saying when the carrier comes forward and unlocks the locking bar, it releases the hammer. No, it doesn't. It can't. It's impossible. It doesn't work that way. Like, I don't want to say they're lying, but I feel like they are, because they had all the information laid out in front of them, and I think they purposefully chose to misrepresent the facts, because if we get to argue the merits of the case, we win every day of the week and twice on Tuesdays. And the only chance they've got is to muddy up the waters and mislead the judge. So right now, that's kind of where we are. We've been to court a couple of times. We go back to the court on the 4th. And the purpose of the hearing on the 4th, it's an evidentiary hearing, and it is about our motion for injunctive relief. Immediately when we filed the lawsuit, the first thing we asked for was a temporary restraining order. The judge did not give it to us, and he made the right decision. So he basically said, look, you've got to cease and desist. It threatens legal prosecution, but I cannot grant you a TRO unless it's imminent. Mm-hmm. All right, I can appreciate that. He made the right decision, although
Sure.
It's very unfortunate for us. He made the right decision and did not grant us the TRO. So we also asked for injunctive relief. Well, after we left the court, then we get news they've impaneled a grand jury. All right, am I going to get indicted? How many life sentences am I looking at? Are they intentionally trying to leverage, felony criminal charges in order to get me to fold on the civil side? We're definitely having a tough time, because I feel like they've been very disingenuous. Like, they've definitely kind of trying to strong arm us and kind of apply leverage. And the funny thing is, I'm like, obviously they don't know who I am. They might have wanted to check, but I'm not just going to roll over. But okay, so we go back to court on the 4th. The 4th is going to be very, very telling, based on the fact that the administrative record is so muddied up. The ATF and the DOJ are arguing that we should not have the ability to submit evidence or have expert witness testimony heard at all. Now, the fact that we believe that they have assembled this administrative record in bad faith, we're trying, and they're basically saying that we're making this assertion that they've assembled it in bad faith without any proof of such. And I'm like, well, how can I prove you've assembled it in bad faith if I also can't submit evidence or have expert witness testimony? So, and I mean, I'm really kind of grazing the surface because it's pages and pages and pages of motions and responses on both sides. So there's a lot of information here. But the gist of it is that they're trying to prevent us from being able to argue the case. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts because they can't win on the merits.
Walk me through the chronology. You bring the force reset trigger to market until the lawsuit. Walk me through that temporal period.
Okay.
How did we get here?
So we bring it to market in December of 2020. The ATF learns about it in January of 2021, but they can't get their hands on one. They're in high demand. We're selling out every day, and they can't get one. So I believe it's many, many months before they're actually able to get one. But there's a lot of emails going back and forth between the guys at the ATF, basically predetermining that they're going to classify it as a machine gun when they get it. They just need to get their hands on one before they can actually say it's a machine gun. Like, hold on, shouldn't you be open-minded and get your hands on it and conduct a test before you say it's a machine gun, rather than saying, yeah, it's going to be a machine gun. Let's just get our hands on one first. All right, cool. So they get their hands on one. They conduct a test. I'm even kind of shortening this up, but they hit us with a cease and desist, and their cease and desist is full of like factually incorrect information. We tell them no, and we ask them for a copy of the examination. They won't give it to us. We ask for a week. They won't give it to us. We continue to ask. They won't give it to us. Then they close the administrative record. And when they close it, we can't submit anything to it. It's really wild.
Lawrence, let's go back to getting the cease and desist.
Okay, sure.
You guys received the cease and desist. And at this point, what was the decision process like? What was that conversation when you get this cease and desist? What did you guys say?
Fuck you. I mean, can I say that?
Yes, of course you can. How was the conversation? I meant internally. You guys get this sheet of paper and you're talking to who? When did you find out?
I mean, honestly, it might have been really close to that. Like, we might have looked at each other and said, F them.
So there was no hesitation.
No, absolutely no hesitation.
Deliberation.
No, they're wrong. They're wrong. Like, the facts are on our side. The law is on our side. All they can do is pound on the table. They're making noise, muddying up the administrative record, and I truly believe their entire intent is to just throw so much stuff in front of the judge that he's like, you know what? I'm going to defer to this administrative agency to tell me that it's a machine gun, and I'm just going to take their word for it.
Are you concerned at all about your customers, people who have bought the FRT, about them being prosecuted just for owning one, or about them being tracked down by the ATF after they look through your records?
Okay, well, that is a part of our argument. And this is something that I see all the time on the internet, and this is a great place to address it. So many people say that we're just going to roll over and give them the information. No, we're not. We're not going to roll over and give them the information. It's not happening. That is one of the things in our lawsuit that we've asked the court to protect us with. I'm not really worried about our customers. I can tell you this, we've already got the experts. We've already got their opinions. We've got everything to support somebody.
With all this on the line, then why are you fighting?
This is not the hill I want to die on. I have 2 little boys. I have an amazing wife. I love my life. And I had no idea this was going to be such a significant and probably landmark case. I didn't know that going in. Like, I knew we were going to ruffle some feathers. But at some point, you have to draw a line and just say, no, you're wrong. What you're doing is wrong. It's not okay. And I have to take a stand. Have I never started down this road? Well, there wouldn't be a fight. But now that we're here, it's really tough. I feel as if I would be doing, and this is crazy to say, it's actually crazy for me to hear myself say, but I feel like I would be doing our customers and the entire 2A community not even a disservice. I feel like I would be abandoning them by walking away. I feel like I have to see this through, and not for me, not for my family, because this definitely isn't helping us. I can tell you the stress that this has brought into my life, but we need a win, and I know that we can win if we get to argue the merits of the case. And that's why I truly believe in my heart of hearts that the DOJ and the ATF are trying so hard to prevent us from being able to submit evidence and expert witness testimony.
So then to conclude, how do you see this playing out? What's going to happen?
I mean, my crystal ball is not giving me any insight to that. Now, I do believe that court on the 4th is going to be very telling. They're arguing that the judge should only be able to see what's inside the administrative record. And the only thing in the administrative record is what they've put in it. So they're arguing that we shouldn't be able to submit anything to the judge, evidence or expert witness testimony, because it's not in the administrative record. They never gave us an opportunity to submit anything into the administrative record, which is another like due process violation. And the list is long on that side of things. But I think we're in a really, really good position, because we've got the evidence. The law's on our side, the facts are on our side, and we've got the evidence to support our argument. So I think a lot is going to be decided on the 4th. Now, the crazy thing is that we've got so much further to go after the 4th, because the 4th is only the hearing on injunctive relief, which has nothing to do with the actual case. It's going to dictate whether or not we get to continue doing business during litigation. Now, I know you get that, but a lot of people probably don't get that. So it is, but I have a feeling, honestly, the decision made by the judge on the 4th is going to tell us a lot.
Lawrence, I got to say, thank you for coming to TFBTV, for doing this interview, for being frank, honest, forthright with us. I think everyone out there is pulling for you, everybody watching this. Honestly, if you should go to jail for anything, it should be Spartan helmet lowers.
I get it. They're not for everybody.
No, I'm kidding. Thank you so much. And best of luck to you guys on the 4th at your next hearing.
Thank you.
We're going to be watching that intently. Can't thank you enough for being on the program.
Thank you.
I can't thank you guys enough for watching. Take care.